Whether you like to fish structure and freshwater or the deep blue offshore, we have the best guides to talk about that and more. Plus Dave at the workbench with the rigs and techniques here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
You're watching the Texas Insider Fishing Report, and we're your hosts, Bree Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy. There's a lot of fish talk going around this big state of Texas, so Rick, I think we better get started. But first, we have to say hi to our CCA workbench extraordinaire, Dave Farrell.
Yeah.
Dave.
We're talking about a Nico rig today. I like talking about things that I don't know nothing about. So I got to learn a little bit about something, which I like to do. So we're going to try to pass that on.
That's great. We'll
What
all
about the
learn
Nico
together.
rig?
Do you know about the Nico rig?
Of course.
Oh.
Nico.
Well, you're going to
Of course
help
he does.
Dave and I then. All right, getting us into gear here is newcomer Matt Loescher from the Star-Tron Middle Fresh region with reports on Toledo Bend, Lake Palestine, and Cedar Creek. Let's hear it, Matt.
Hey guys, how's it going this week?
Good. How you doing, bub?
Man, we're doing great over here. I'm excited to kick off the show this week with the Middle Fresh region because things are pretty hot.
So what you got going on, bud? Let's go ahead and jump right into it.
All right, I'm going to start on Toledo Bend, talking about yellow bass. They're really ganging up this past week, and I think they're going to be there for a little while, just on flat points around the main lake and in the mouths of creeks. You can just idle around with your electronics looking for these things. Just kind of go around, look for the shad in about 10 to 15 feet of water, and the fish are going to be there with them. So just kind of look around until you find the shad and start fishing. Live minnows have been best. Just take a live minnow, tight line it, drop it down to the bottom, just pick it up just off the bottom, about 2-3 foot off the bottom is usually best. And you can catch some on a jig and spoon as well. But the tight line minnow is really the best way to do it. And you want to do this early in the morning. It's a first light kind of deal. You might get a couple hours after daylight. But that first light is when it's really hot and they're really ganged up and biting good. You can catch some big numbers. And we're catching some other fish mixed in with them too. A few white bass and crappie and some spotted bass. But the yellow bass are really the big numbers.
So Matt, before you move on, I got a question for you. You say you're looking for them on the electronics. So what do they look like when you're looking at them on the graph? What do you see?
Well, they're going to show up. I like to use my down scan and my side imaging to find them. And on there, they usually look like almost like little popcorn or little cheese puffs. They're not a real big fish. So what you want to do is just kind of look for them within the shad. Find those shad on your electronics and even on your traditional sonar, whether it's down scan or sonar. But just look for those shad and look for those little white blips amongst those shad, kind of underneath the shad usually is where they're going to be. It's usually fairly obvious when you find them. You might have to look a little bit, a little closer. Of course, the better your electronics are, the better you can see them. But, yeah, just little white blips, really.
All right. Well, tell me about this picture, bub.
That's a photo I took just a few days ago of a table full of yellow bass there. That was a really good morning we had. I think that was about 75 of them.
Wow.
And they were just wanting to jump on the hook that day. It was a great catch.
Just a bunch of cheese puffs.
Just a bunch of cheese puffs, Bree said. That's awesome.
Puffs.
All right, tell us about the largemouth bass, Matt.
Well, the largemouth bass, we're not catching the numbers of those things right now. They're being a little stingy on the number. They're a little scattered. We've had a lot of rain over here in East Texas, so the water level on Toledo Bend has been fluctuating a lot, and it's just got the bass a little bit scattered out. But, however, we are catching some big ones, so the quality makes up for the quantity right now. I'm using a Texas rigged lizard and a Texas rigged worm mostly, fishing about 2 to 10 foot deep, focusing on these fish that are spawning. Some are coming into spawn still. Some just got done spawning. But if you focus on that 2 to 10 foot deep range, you'll kind of catch all three. You want to stay on the flatter banks that are close to deep water, because with that water level fluctuating, they're not going to be far from deep water. They don't want to get trapped in the back of those pockets and things like that. But Worm and a lizard have been the best for me. June bug in the dirty water, watermelon red in the clear water. You know, I keep it simple. You know, like Boo said last week, I like the KISS method.
All right, tell us about these 2 photos there, Bub.
All right, I got a picture there of a guy named Spence and his son Noah from a trip. We caught some real big bass that day. The one Spence is holding, I think, was about a 7.5, and Noah was only 10 years old, and he boated a lot of bass that day. And he caught one that was about 4.5, 5 pounds there, and it was a great time. So now's a good time to look for those big ones.
And the second photo you got?
That's Noah. He's a little 10-year-old kid. He's got about a 4.5 pounder there that he caught on a lizard.
Man, he makes that fish look big. All right, tell me about some crappie fishing.
Crappie they're on the docks mostly, you know, and on the bridges still some. They're doing kind of like the bass, you know. Some are spawning, some are just getting done spawning. But just look for the creek channels and focus on those docks that are close to the creek channels. You know, depth varies, but just find those creek channels where those fish are moving in and out, and those docks that are around those creek channels. Use a live minnow or a jig in that electric chicken color. I like a 16th-ounce head, and just go catch them. They're usually there.
All right, Bub. Well, thank you so much. You did it. You got some white bass for us?
Yeah. Sorry, I stopped a little short there. We got Lake Palestine and Cedar Creek have been putting out a lot of white bass. I talked to Mike Weeks up there, and he's been catching a ton of fish, 100 or more a day. And he's catching white bass, hybrids, blue catfish all mixed together on live shad under a cork. Real shallow, about a foot deep, on rocky points and retaining walls where the wind's blowing in. Same deal as the yellow bass and Toledo Bend, early in the morning. You know, just start early, throw those live shad up there, and you should catch a bunch.
All right, man. Great report from the Star-Tron Middle Fresh region. Way to get us started. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots. On Toledo Bend, yellow bass are hot on the flat points in 10 to 15 feet of water, especially early in the morning or late in the evening. And then the best way to catch them is on a live minnow, tight line close to the bottom. And then big largemouth bass are also being caught on the flat banks 2 to 10 feet deep, close to the deeper water, using a lizard or maybe even a worm on a light Texas rig, Bree.
I like Matt, right?
Yeah, man.
I think we'll keep him.
Okay.
I think he's doing a good job. Cheese puffs and all. I love his descriptions. All right, now we're checking in with some inshore and offshore reports in the Upper Coast region, brought to you by Captain Caleb Harp. How you doing, Caleb?
Oh, I'm doing good. How are y'all doing today?
Good. How are you, Caleb? Good?
Oh, man. Just waiting on this wind to die down a little bit, but it's all good. Let's go ahead and start talking about these redfish. But, you know, between these cold fronts that keep rolling through, it seems like we can't get rid of them. You know, you can get on some good redfish in the marsh and the back lakes around the east and west Galveston Bay. You know, right now these redfish aren't too picky when it comes to what kind of forage they're going to eat, you know, what kind of bait you present them. But the most prevalent bait around right now is still a ton of shad and glass minnows. So gold spoons are a great lure choice for early in the year like this. Whenever you see a bunch of active mullet on the surface, the topwater, like a mirror lure she dog, will get you some good bites too. And if the fish are showing themselves by tailing or pushing bait, you can also do very well throwing a paddle tail soft plastic on a really light 16th-ounce jig head. Personally, I think the Bass Assassin Pro Elite jig heads are the best. 16th, you know, the 16th-ounce head that you can get. A lot of people make different 16ths, but I think they've got the most true size. And, you know, this pattern, it'll stay the same, and it'll actually get better and better as the water temperature gets warmer. So this is something you can do all, you know, throughout the whole summer. And then I've got a picture there of a client of mine, Tony Muscat, with about an 8.5-pound slot red from this week. And, you know, it'd be a good fish to have if we were in a tournament that day. And then going to flounder, you know, we're seeing an abundance of small to medium-sized flounder around the mouths of bio drains in East Galveston Bay right now, which is kind of odd for this time of year. But this can still be a lot of fun, and you can't beat a good mess of flounder for table fare. But pitching, you know, small little paddle tail soft plastics or any kind of gulp on a really small jig head up current in those drains and around exposed points will get you some bites. There's nothing real big, you know, no size on these flounder right now. But, you know, it's still producing some fish out of the wind, and it helps to add a little mixed bag to the box.
All right, what you got for us offshore, bub?
Yeah, man, offshore, this week's been nothing but solid wind and nasty offshore conditions. But, a buddy over there, Carl, with Salty Dolphin Charters out of Freeport, he's got on some, sharks and some bull reds this week. And as most everybody knows, these winds, conditions aren't just going to go away anytime soon. So this is a way to get out and get on some fish until the wind lays down and we can really get out there. But, Carl said the key was just finding visible bait or bird activity in about 40 foot of water. And they just anchored up throwing dead squid and dead shad on a 6/0 hook with about a 3-foot wire leader and a 2-ounce egg sinker. Most of these sharks were black tips and spinners, and they were up to about 5.5 foot. But, there were also a few little bonnetheads mixed in too. But, also another deal, if you can find some shrimp boats dragging, you can troll bucktails, big spoons, or rapid crankbaits and catch some jack crevalle and a few more sharks that way as well. And then he submitted a picture there. It's a picture of Jamie, who deckhands for him over there at Salty Dolphin Charters, with a nice black tip from this week. And you can see those nasty wind and seas in the background there. It's pretty rough out there.
That doesn't look like too much fun there, bub.
No, not at all. But, if we can get a good weather window right now, the time is right for blackfin and yellowfin tuna at the floaters. The Boom Bang and Nansen floaters, which are about 120 miles out of Freeport, are two of the closest and best floater rigs to fish. But if your fuel range is a little more limited, you can check out the East and West Cerveza rigs, which are about 75 nautical miles out of Freeport. And, vertical jigging, those Williamson flutter jigs work really well. That glow-in-the-dark white and pink color are a favorite. And they say, you can just hold that jig up to your spreader light for about 30 seconds or so, and it'll charge up, and you can have a lit jig for a couple drops. Also, topwater poppers they're great at night under the lights around the rig. And then, you can't forget about chunking, which is a great technique for all kinds of tuna. And the bait choice for chunking is, generally going to be menhaden on about a number 4 hook. But right now, those blackfins are going to be about 10 to 25 pounds, and the yellowfin are going to be in the 40 to 80 pound class.
All right, bub, great report. Thank you for the pictures. Doing very, very well for the second week. I'm really impressed. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the CCA Upper Coast Region hotspots. Inshore redfish in the marsh and the back lakes in West and East Galveston Bay have been really good. And then Gold Spoon's topwater soft plastics rigged on a 16th ounce jig head have been the best bet. And then offshore, with the windy conditions, sharks and bull reds have been an option on the beachfront out front of Freeport in 40 feet of water. Dead squid or dead shad will produce a lot of bites. Bree, yes. Bree, did you see that B-roll footage of that girl and the yellowfin tunas?
I did. It was so good to eat that tuna too.
It was.
I miss eating fish.
You look great. You look great catching that fish.
It was fun. All right, let's talk about CCA Texas and the National Habitat Program Building Conservation Trust, because recently they provided $10,000 towards supplementing the Vancouver Nearshore Reef, which will be deployed in the springtime, in addition to the $50,000 of previous funding to earlier phases of this project. At least 40 pyramids will be deployed at the reef just outside of Freeport, Texas, and will provide critical habitat for marine species, benefiting recreational anglers, divers, and coastal communities for years to come. CCA, always doing amazing things.
Absolutely. Habitat restoration.
Habitat restoration. All right, coming up on the Texas Insider Fishing Report, we're going down to the lower fresh region and going down, and we're seeing what rigs and techniques is going down at the CCA workbench. Dave?
Yeah, well, when you can't get a bite, the Nico rig is what you have to go to. It's supposed to get a bite when you can't get a bite on anything else. We're going to talk about that.
Nico's where it's at. All right, we'll be right back.
Here we go with Nico.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. The American Fishing Tackle Company. Any fish, any water. Since 1958. Guy Harvey, marine wildlife artist and conservationist. And CCA Texas, a leader in marine conservation.
Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 offshore 4-strokes. For those that like their V6 lighter, faster, and stronger. Setting new standards for power, efficiency, speed, and lightweight. Built for the rigors of offshore boating. Packed with Yamaha's legendary reliability. And now Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 4-strokes offer a choice between digital or mechanical controls to match your rigging preference. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore.
Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
CCA is the largest marine conservation group of its kind, with 70,000 members in Texas. CCA's mission is dedicated to conserve, promote, and enhance the present and future availability of our coastal resources for the benefit and enjoyment of the general public. So if you care about the health of our Texas coastal resources, join CCA today by going to their website, ccatexas.org, and help them make a difference. Use the promo code REDFISH to receive your free hat with your membership. CCA, the leader in marine conservation.
Well, the CCA workbench, every week we have rigs and techniques, and this week we're going to do something a little outside of our box.
Yeah, well, I came up, one of the fellas, one of our guides sent me the idea for this. You know, he said, you know, you need to show the people the Nico rig. And it's been a rig that's been around for a couple of years. The pros have known it for a little while longer. But what this thing is, it's kind of like a wacky rig, and you use a soft bait, usually a straight worm is what you want to use, and that's a Bass Assassin tap out. And, you know, a good straight worm. It's a finesse rig. And, you know, you use lighter line with this, probably 6 to 8 pound test fluorocarbon. And the key to this rig is a weight at one end. You put your weight at the fat end of the worm, and that is going to be bouncing on the ground. Your hook is at the other end, you know, at the top end, and it's going to be floating up. And you're going to, when this thing, you throw this rig in, it's going to go straight to the bottom, and that's what they like about it. It goes straight to the bottom really quickly, and you can adjust how fast it goes to the bottom by the type of weight and the amount of weight you put on the end. So if you're fishing in shallow water and you don't want it to go straight to the bottom real quick, you can put like a nail in there or something like that. Right. And that's how it started, was guys using nails. VMC actually makes this hook for the Nico rig. You know, it says on there, the Nico rig hook. And what it is, it's a light wire hook with a kind of a long shank and a bit of an offset. And the hook is very important in this, because you want a light wire hook that's going to the worm will be able to lift up off the bottom. You don't want such a heavy hook that it's going to make the rig not work.
It changes the action.
Yeah, so you want a really light wire hook, and believe it or not, a light wire hook is plenty strong enough, you know, even for a big bass, if it's well made. And what you do is when you rig this, it's important to rig it with when you insert the hook, to insert it towards the weight, so that when it comes all the way through, it's facing away from the weight. And so when that thing comes down and the bass comes and eats it, the hook point is exposed and it's pointing up. So it's got a really great hookup ratio.
I imagine with braided line,
what you do,
spectacular.
Yeah, what you do is you have a light braid, and then you have a 6 or 8 pound test monofilament leader. You know, fluorocarbon I would use. You know, I'd use a little fluorocarbon leader, and you cast that out and you just bounce it on the bottom. You can either keep it in contact with the bottom the whole time, or you can give it a little shake when you pick it up. You know, pick it up, give it a little jig. And what they'll also do is when they let it sink, as it sinks down to the bottom, and as soon as it hits the bottom, you just give your rod tip a couple shakes back and forth. And what it does is it makes that tail wiggle. You know, you can make that tail wiggle, but give it a good shimmy right when it gets to the bottom. And it should make that tail wiggle, then you pick it up. The only reason to pick that thing up is to drop it back down. So that's what you wanted to do. The Nico name, I've heard 2 different versions of why it's called a Nico rig. Nico supposedly is Japanese for cat, and a cat pawing in his litter box puts up little puffs of sand. So that's what they say that nail does. You know, it makes a little puff. I've also heard, it was another guy called it a Nico something else, which means a vacuum cleaner, because it sucked up all the fish. It was a really productive for him. Now you don't have to only use a worm. You could also use a small swim bait. You know, just make sure you put the weight in the fat end, and it's gonna do the exact same thing. The tail will float, and the lead part, the weighted end, will be down in the dirt, and that's what simulates a feeding minnow. You know, a minnow will get down and feed like that, and what that does is, you know, hopping and going down to the bottom makes it look like a small minnow, and the way that the hook is up at the top makes it very deadly.
This is the little tapper. It looks like the one thing I always liked about the little tapper on the flats, for whatever reason, this tail, when it would be head down, the tail would be up in the air like this. Right. It was like it had air or something in here, and it didn't want to lay down.
That's perfect, and it's perfect for this, the tap out worm too. Yeah. It's got the same thing. It's got a bulb on the end where you can do the same thing. If you don't want to use a worm, you can also use a sluggo type bait. They use these a lot, sometimes even smaller than this, and you can use an O-ring. I don't know if you can see it on here. I have an O-ring tool, and what this does is these O-rings allow you to hook the bait. I mean, hook through underneath the O-ring instead of going through the bait. This does two things. It keeps your bait from getting tore up when the fish eats it. You can use it over and over again, and it's a lot easier to hook. You know, it's a one-time thing where you don't have to worry about it. But a really cool thing that I can't wait to try. It's supposed to work good in clear water and in dark water. Muddy water probably not so much, because they got to be able to see it. And that little thing bouncing up and down with that hook up is going to be awesome for me, and I'm glad I found out about it.
You know, Dave, you amaze me. You really do. I appreciate your homework sometimes, because that whole 5 minutes I was learning.
Oh, good.
As they say, you're going to learn today. I just learned.
Thank you.
All right, learned us.
He learned us.
He learned us. He learned us well. Now we all know what Nico is. All right, now on to the itty-bitty Lower Fresh region with Matt Reed, who's covering Lake Amistad, Fayette County, Somerville, Decker, and Lake Buchanan. So listen up. Hey, Matt, they're ready for you.
Hey, Bree, how are y'all doing today?
We're doing fantastic. Ready to get to fishing.
Yeah, that's a good thing. You know, that little bitty South Texas region, there's only about 2 acres of water down there, so let's start covering what we've got. I'm going to talk about the largemouth bass. We're going to start out at Lake Amistad. Amistad's about 22 foot low right now, which, that's not terrible. It gets a lot lower than that. Water temperature mid-60 to the low 70s, depending on the weather. Been fishing really well. The lake is extra clear right now. It's clearer than it's been in several years. And for Lake Amistad, if you're familiar with it at all, that means it's really clear. And it's causing the bass to be out deeper than you would think they would be. You know, the spawn for the fish in the protected coves and the creeks, it's pretty much done. Those fish are headed out to the hydrilla off the points. You can catch them on a Texas rig or a crankbait or a swim bait out over that grass. Also, there's they'll bite a topwater in that post spawn long time, and that's going really well right now with a spook or a popper also. But one of the neat things that happens this time of year there, the main lake fish will spawn out on those flats. And, they may spawn out to 30 feet deep with this clarity. All that's required for them to spawn is to be able to get sunlight. So at clear water, the main lake fish are starting to spawn out on the big, deep flats at the mouth of the bays. You can catch those fish on a big Cinco Texas rig. You have to put a little weight on it for that depth to get it down to them. Also, a Carolina rig lizard will do a good job. One of the cool things is when it's real calm, you can actually see the fish on the beds down there in that depth. I've actually caught fish off a bed in 22 foot of water at Amistad looking at it, which I've never done that anywhere else. So here's fish spawning out on the deep flats right now. The post-spawn fish are active around the grass, so it's fishing really good both ways. Let's move on up the road to Fayette County. Lately, it's been hit or miss. We're around that spawn. You got some doing it, some post-spawn. So it's that time of the year. The fish are shallow around the timber and the grass. The ones there we're catching on a Texas rig soft plastic and a spinner bait. The The others are beginning to move to their offshore locations. Those fish are biting the Carolina rig. Best colors have been the watermelon shades. You know, those fish are in the 10 to 15 foot range out on the points. Going to shift on to Lake Somerville. Somerville is high right now. The water's up in the bushes, and it's fishing extremely well. Those fish are shallow in that cover. You can catch them on a chatterbait and top waters on the cloudy days, up on the windy banks, up real shallow. Also, a wacky rig Cinco around the buckbrush is catching a lot of fish, and they're also biting jigs pretty well in the bushes. Man, there's been some big fish caught there. A lot of 10, 11-pound fish have come out of Somerville lately, so it's a place you might want to look into. Brian Cotter up in that Austin area, Lake Decker, has been fishing really well. He's been catching 30 or 40 fish a day, most of them on watermelon-colored worms, working it around the grass, fishing really slow. You know, that's what those fish have done after they've got through spawning. Also, he's catching some on A-rigs out over the deeper water on swim baits. Those are post-spawn fish that have already moved back out and schooled up, starting to eat. You know, they're catching, like I said, 30 or 40 a day, with at least 1 5-pounder per trip, and sometimes more. So if you want to catch some good numbers, Lake Decker is really kicking them out right now. Another lake in the Austin area, Lake Buchanan, it's fishing really strong. There's been some real big fish caught lately in the shallow water in that 1 to 5 foot range. Most of them flipping creature baits in the trees and some on swim baits. Brian Cotter was lucky enough to have a customer catch the lake record the other day at 11.75.
Tell me about the photo there, Matt.
That's that photo of that lake record. That fish weighed 11.75, and there's smiles all around in that boat.
All right, tell me real quickly on the stripers, bub. We're running out of time.
All right, Lake Amistad, the stripers are real active down within a couple of miles of a dam. You can catch them best on umbrella rigs and swim baits. Look for them on your little ranch electronics and get your arm stretched.
All right, bub. Thank you. Great report. Really filled us up there this week. Let's go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the lower fresh region. He says largemouth bass on Decker Lake are biting very well on soft plastics. Fish slowly around the grass in around 5 feet of water, Bree.
All right, if you're in the Middle Coast or Upper Fresh region, get ready because we're checking in with your captains next for a fun-filled weekend of fishing. And don't forget to visit our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and watch us on YouTube, and view and tag us on Instagram. Just a friendly little reminder. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. CCA Star, fishing fun for giant prizes and scholarships. And Costa Sunglasses, see what's out there.
Master your most challenging offshore experience with confidence and ease with Yamaha Helmmaster. Precise, intuitive control on the open seas. Unrivaled ease for maneuvering and docking in port. And now SetPoint adds 3 new dimensions to boat control. Maintain boat position with fish point, or a position and heading with stay point, or a heading while you drift with drift point. Yamaha Helmmaster, now with SetPoint. Complete digital control for today's larger offshore boats.
As close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left. There's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
Remember to follow our guides and be up to date on all things fishing in Texas. Make sure to head over to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com. You can catch all of our shows on our YouTube channel too. Remember to like us on Facebook at Texas Insider Fishing Report and follow us on Instagram at TifferTV. Also, don't forget to send and tag us in your fish-tastic photos and videos, which we're getting a lot of from our captains. I'm very pleased.
I know, yes.
Lots of big
Doing a
fish,
good
lots
job.
of smiles. That's what we're here for, right?
Yes.
All right, now on to your Middle Coast region with Bink Grimes, who always has the inshore and offshore bite report. So, Bink, let's hear it.
Tell you what, we'll start off with trout. Our water temperatures have been running about 74 degrees the past few days, and it kind of amps up the trout bite. Our best catches have come wading the edges of reefs with skitterwalks, super spooks, and she dogs. Those higher tides have encouraged our trout to flood the reefs on the shoreline, and those bloated tides it's also a great time for big trout hunting on the flats as rafts of mullet stage in less than 2 foot of water, and those gator trout just follow them. We know topwaters catch big fish, but also this time here, soft flashes are catching just as many trophy trout. Then along the south shoreline of West Matagorda Bay, it's been good in the guts on the falling tide, according to guide Ray Sexton of Palacios. Sexton's been tossing those magic grass down south lures on light 1/16 ounce heads, and he's fooling trout to 4 pounds. We're still waiting on the glass minnows to show up on the shoreline, which could be any day. And those pelicans are diving out deep, and as the tide pushes minnows to the shallows, those trout are going to follow. Then over Port O'Connor, old guide Lynn Smith said his best topwater bite's been over sand and grass. Big spring tides have pushed trout to the back lakes where corkies, softines, down south lures, bass assassins, and gamblers have worked on light 1/16 to 1/18 ounce heads. The wind in the water's been iffy at times, but that doesn't hurt us over in East Bay. Right now, the Colorado River's running fresh, and we hadn't had much choice but to fish that off-color water in East Bay. The catching hadn't been great, but when you can go out and catch a half limit of trout on artificial lures and less than 4 inches of visibility, you know the bay's pretty healthy. And all I can say is when the water gets green, you better look out because we're going to really catch them. And then Rockport, guide Rhett Price said the trout are hanging around sand and shell on soft plastic. That bite's been pretty early, and it's been shutting down around midday with a bright moon. And while he's fishing out of the boat, he's having good luck, fishing for live shrimp over shell. And there's a photo there of Captain Ray Sexton releasing a 5-pound trout that he caught on that magic grass down south lure.
It looks good, Bink.
We'll go to let's go to redfish, and up and down the spring tides it's determined where those redfish are hanging out, and those swelling spring tides are pushing them back in the lakes like Lake Austin, Oyster Lake, and Crab Lake. And then at Port O'Connor, they're hanging out in Conti, Pringle, and Shoalwater, and waders and drifters both are getting them. And then, as always, the jetty is holding good redfish on crabs and mullet, and a lot of bull redfish. Most of them been in the 25-pound range. And we, as always, we ask you to please release those spawners. Those big ones are not good to eat in the first place, and let them go and let them make more little reds. We've had a lot of those reds have had a tough time turning down gulps and gold spoons and gamblers and bass assassins and down south lures and mirror lure little johns. And then over by Palacios, we're finding reds around Coon Island on live shrimp, and then the waders have been tossing those Pro Strike humpbacks and waist deep waters around Green and Cotton Bow. And we're looking for schools of reds to shadow those glass minnows in the afternoon. Our tides have been coming in the afternoon and pushing little bitty minnows in there, and those reds, every time you catch a red, their stomach's just full of those little minnows. And then at Freeport, guide Mike Seagal said he's been chasing the bull redfish along the beachfront in about 35 foot of water on sardines and squid. And he said at times those sharks are coming in there and crashing the party. And there's a photo of a spring redfish that would make a good tournament fish that weighed in at 9 pounds. That's my lovely wife.
I love the logo. You know anything about that,
And your
Lodge?
wife, she's beautiful. The logo.
The wife, yeah, of course,
Yeah.
that goes without saying, but the logo of the Sunrise Lodge, I know about that place. All right, man.
I definitely overmarried. So we'll go with Black Drum next, and guide Michael Roth of Matagorda said the spring tides will put lots of keeper-sized black drum on the Shell and Mad Island and Shell Island. He's fishing them with live shrimp under a popping cork, but really there's drum just about on every piece of shell out there. Those same points and shorelines are holding a drum and redfish in Espiritu Santo Bay and San Antonio Bay. And then the large spawning drum that are heading to the Gulf, they've been consistent in Rockport and Port Aransas on cracked blue crabs and peeled table shrimp. And that's been around the Ingleside Channel and the Port Aransas jetty. They're just full of them. And then those nearby piers are just as good for a lot of fish over 30 inches.
Quickly on the offshore.
Yeah, offshore. Michael Quebeca said there's lots of wahoo out there at the Flower Garden, and some of them are on deeper rigs and 400 plus foot of water on marauders and deep diving crankbait. And he said the ballyhoo are working, so are islander lures. And Gulf's been a little rough lately with spring winds, but there's also a lot of swordfish out there in 1,400 to 1,800 foot of water.
Whoa, that's pretty deep. All right, thank you so much, Bink. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Middle Coast region. Bink says inshore in Rockport, live shrimp under a popping cork is good for trout over the reefs. On the incoming tide, West Matagorda Bay waters have caught good trout on magic grass down south lures along the south shoreline. And then black drum are good in Ingleside Channel and Port Aransas jetties on a cracked blue crab.
He overmarried. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, that's so nice.
So nice. Johnny Geis, I almost said Johnny Juice, the way I want to say it, in the Upper Fresh region, is also one of our newcomers. And he's got you covered if you're on Lake Fork or Bob Sandlin this weekend. Hi, Juice. Do you mind if I call you Johnny Juice?
Hello, Rick and Bree. How y'all doing?
We're doing good, man. Give it to us.
It's a busy springtime here on Fork. Hey, giant crappie are on Fork. We're not known only as a big bass lake, but also as an excellent crappie lake. They just had the annual Crappie Fest tournament last weekend. Huge success, had 363 entries in the tournament. I'll have a picture of the winner in a minute. This was a big fish event where they were cash prizes for each crappie that was the closest to 1, 2, or 3 pound and quarter-pound increments. The crappie were caught really from 1 foot to 28 foot, according to most of the contestants, and they were caught in all types of structure. But the best areas were in the shallow protected coves. It had a lot of vegetation there with a lot of alligator weed. You had to fish as close to the edge as possible to get bit, but that's where the big crappie were. When I went, I caught a lot of them on an ultralight spinning rig with 6-pound line, used a 16th ounce plastic white jig under a small cork to locate the spawning crappie, and then we put on the crappie minnow and caught even more. So when you catch a fish and locate them, we put down the power poles, see how many more bunched up nearby, and be real careful not to blow out the cover with your trolling motor. That stops the bite pretty quick. So not all the crappie need to spawn near the shorelines here. You can also catch a good-sized crappie in shallow brush piles or standing timber. Again, minnows and jigs are the best lures to use there too. Like to use your electronics when you come to Fork to locate these brush piles and weed lines. Some of the side imaging of the new units can really speed up that process. The crappie are the best freshwater fish for table fare, I think. And whether you have a good old fish fry or bake them, nothing beats a fresh mess of crappie. Here's a tip a customer showed me last week. He took a 2-inch cylindrical cork, cut it in half, and used one end as a popping cork, similar to what you do with redfish, to attract the spawning crappie to the jig. You just keep the cork popping softly, and a big crappie come by and find your jig, and game on.
Man, that's a cool trick. That's cool, man.
Yeah, I got the picture up now. How about a $12,500 crappie?
Dang!
I'll take it.
I bet that one tastes extra sweet.
I bet he might have framed that one. David Hurley wins $12,500 first place at the Crappie Fest with a 3.07 slab crappie.
All right. Well, tell me about some largemouth, Johnny.
Largemouth, I tried to take a break off Fork a day or two earlier this week, and I fished on Lake Bob Sandlin. Caught over a dozen nice bass, all up to 7 pounds on ultralight tackle. It was a blast. On Lake Bob, it's 40 miles from east of Fork. It's pretty close by, has an excellent bass habitat. A lot of underwater vegetation there, and standing timber are the areas we're finding the fish in. But like most area lakes, bass are in all phases of the spawn there also. Many bass today were still on their nest. but the best areas to find those spawning fish are those protected coves away from the winds we've been getting the winds. Lake Bob Sandlin has a nice state park. You've got a good fishing pier, so if you want to take the family over for a camping trip and a fishing trip, that's the place to go. The lake doesn't receive much fishing pressure, believe it or not, in this time of year, and it's kind of uncommon to see more than a few boats at the boat ramps. But during the spring is the time to go catch some good fish. Pleasure boating and water skiers are abundant when the weather warms up, so later in the spring and early summer it will get busy. There are other two lakes that are backed up to Bob Sandlin. While you're there, there's Lake Cypress Springs and Lake Monticello. They butt right up to that lake, so they also have excellent bass fishing, and you can visit those areas while you're in the same area. In fact, today we could have launched one side in Monticello and the other side in Bob Sandlin. So I have a picture of a nice Bob Sandlin bass that was caught recently by a good friend of mine, Charlie Hodgson.
All right, well, good report, Johnny. We really appreciate your effort, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Upper Fresh regional hotspots. He said Lake Fork crappie fishing has been fantastic. The spawn is in full swing, with most of them being caught in 1 to 2 feet of water. Look for the protected areas with weeds close by, and the fish a jig or a minnow under a cork. And then Lake Bob Sandlin, bass fish in all phases of the spawn. The best lures are fluke, Cincos, and watermelon or watermelon red, Bree.
All right, coming right up on the Texas Insider Fishing Report, we're casting to the lower coast region and then heading on over to Dave's office at the CCA workbench for some shopping, right, Dave?
Yeah, I think I got a tool for you, Rick.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, buddy. Get you straightened out quick.
Yeah, man, I think that'll fix it. That'll fix it.
All right, Dave, we'll be back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Rapala. Catch the latest at Rapala.com. Yeti, built for the wild. Building Conservation Trust, CCA's National Habitat Program. Startron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems. And Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala.
When you've got an incredible opportunity in front of you, you want a Yamaha VMAX SHO behind you. Just ask 2017 Toyota Bassmaster Angler of the Year, Brandon Polinick. He'll tell you, if you're an aspiring angler with big dreams and a VMAX SHO, there's no limit to what you can achieve. Light, fast, fuel-efficient V6 performance and Yamaha reliability that lets you focus on your game. Nothing pushes you like a Yamaha VMAX SHO.
That's all we need. We need next quarter so we can just bonus everything.
Yeah? Stop working right now! Look outside. Is this spreadsheet weather? No, it's not. This is fishing weather. So stop clicking, get out there, and catch a bass. Stop what you're doing and start fishing Rapala Ripstop.
Thanks for tuning in to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with our captains, contests, and appearances. You never have to miss a show. You can find full episodes as well as special segments right on our homepage. Just head to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com for everything you need to know to stay hooked up.
Hi, I'm Robert Shamblin with JL Marine Systems with your Power Pole tip. Today we're going to talk about the all-new redesigned stern bracket for our 10-foot blade. This new design flexes for an improved wave absorption, and it allows for an increased twist on the anchor without any damage to the transom or the stern bracket. It's constructed from stainless steel and a polymer core, which reduces the weight. It's super strong. It's got non-corrosive brass bearings that stand up to heavy use, even by guides that are on the water every single day, year after year. It's got a pre-assembled rod joint that keeps the anchor assembly very tight, and there's no need for regular bolt tightening and maintenance. It's also got a powder-coated cover, so it has a nice clean finish with it as well. Also, the new hydraulic hose exits from the top of the bracket, so it's really easy to install either on the port or the starboard side. Next week, we're going to talk all about our new heavy-duty hydraulic hose, and that's your Power Pole tip. The CCA workbench, Dave. Certainly,
sir.
new products. That's all part of this show as well.
Yeah.
And
Well,
man,
tonight we're gonna be talking a little bit about this one first. This is a chatterbait. This is the Project Z chatterbait, which is kind of like a beefed up chatterbait. It's the new one. I used one of these things the other day. I mean, I haven't been using it a lot. I just look at it and think, man, what am I going to catch with that thing? I tell you what, I used it on Sunday in the wind in Lake Toho, and I crushed them. You know, I caught a lot of fish with it, and they just make a ton of noise. So they work in dark water and clear water. You can put a trailer on it or not. You know, they come in a lot of different colors. They got that you know, the Z-Man skirt, which you know, really tough skirts. You know, come in different color schemes. Got the, you know, nice paint job and the 3D eyes. Just nice 3/8 ounce, and they just make a whole lot of noise and attract a lot of stuff. So get those chatterbaits. They work really good. Everybody's using a swim jig nowadays. That's just one that really swims. So next we have, this is the Costa Del Mar collection. And they've got 4 different frames.
It's the Del Mar collection.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Costas and the Del Mar collection.
Right.
And these are inspired by the ocean, and you know, they all come in like ocean colors and the lifestyle there. The first one there is the Aransas. That's the only the men's frame in this collection. And you know, it's got the large frame, classic square lens shape, comes in 4 different colors. You know, all these lenses come with, all these glasses come with all the different lenses.
To the beach, baby.
Those are nice. Those look nice. Very nice.
What do you think, Bree? Looking good?
Good.
And then we got the Del Mars, which are a medium fit, and they come in 4 colors. These are a ladies frame. These all the other ones here are ladies frames. So again, these are all made. The Del Mar collection is, you know, very.
This got obviously green mirror, right? Or blue mirror.
It's a blue mirror.
That's nice.
Small, and that's a smaller frame. These are all small frame to, you know, medium frame, and the obviously the Aransas there is the large frame. This is the May. I really like this. This is a kind of a cat style, very fancy. Looks good on the ladies.
Upscale. Look at how it's got all the.
It's got the gold inside.
Yeah, man.
Very nice.
I can see Miss Bree wearing these.
Those are the Sarasotas.
Looking hot. Going to the hospital.
Yes, very nice.
All right,
next,
you got?
We all have non-skid on our decks, and the good thing about non-skid is you don't skid. The bad thing about non-skid is it picks up everything that hits it, from dirt to grease to, you know, everything will get on it. And this Starbright non-skid deck cleaner, it's not a soap. You know what it does? It has special polymers that break up the dirt. You know, and you put this on, let it sit for 2 or 3 minutes, and then rinse it off. And you might have to do a little bit of scrubbing, but what this stuff does is it keeps you from having to scrub. And once you're done, you rinse it off, it leaves a nice little polymer on it, you know, that helps you out. They also have the non-skid deck wax. So after you do your cleaning, you know, you can put your deck wax on there, and it provides a non-slip surface again. You know, it doesn't make it all slippery, and it protects against stains and UV damage. You know, if fish blood gets on it, you know, it doesn't stick. It comes off a lot easier. And it's also good if you have a deck that's been, you know, sun exposed for a long time, it's chalky. You can put some of this on it, and it helps restore it, brings it back. Yeah, it does a really good job of bringing stuff back.
Now, let me ask you, and you might know, might not. What about, can we use this on the sides of the boat as well? It's a wax, right?
Yeah, any fiberglass painted surfaces it works good on.
There we go.
Yeah, so yeah, just very good stuff there.
All right, so what else you got over there?
Well, we've got the tool for you. This is the CCA degouger. It's you know, to get your hook back. You know, if you're especially in Texas, you know, you're fishing for sharks, and you don't want to put your hands near a mouthful of teeth. You know, you're letting go of your 5th king mackerel or whatever for the day, and you don't want to get your hands in there. Barracudas. I'm not going to use this for a wahoo. He's dead. but we're going to put the gaff in.
Get the lure back at the
I can get the gaff, cut his head off and pull the gaff, lure out. But you know, this is, you know, if you want to let the fish live, you know, like if you're catching a big grouper, you know, and he's not in season, and you don't want to kill the fish getting the hook out, this kind of thing can reach down in there and keep your hands safe and get the hook out of the fish safely.
You know what's cool about all these products, Dave?
Academies.
Is you can go to Academy and buy them right there. And remember, anytime you buy some CCA marked product like this,
it helps out
de-hooker,
everybody.
Some of the proceeds from the sale goes right back to CCA.
Yep.
All right, Bree.
All I can say is I better be getting those fancy glasses in the mail. That comment, okay? All right, Captain Chad Kinney is always surprising us with his offshore and inshore reports, and this weekend is no different. Tell everyone what they should be prepping for on the water this weekend, Chad.
I'll tell you what, I'll get to the offshore here towards the end, but I'm with Dave on the Wahoo thing there. He's going in the boat. The fishing's been great. Bait fishing has been good out of the North Land Cut here out of Fort Mansfield for trout and some drum. And the Wahoo bite, they mentioned it's going on now in Port Aransas and South Texas here. And the snapper in state waters out of Fort Mansfield has consistently been really good. So moving over to the trout here on the inshore, trout fishing has been real good in the North Land Cut. When we're talking North Land Cut here, it's north of Fort Mansfield and Padre Island, north of Mansfield, probably about 18 miles. But a lot of guys here in my area from Corpus Christi, Baton Bay, they all head south and meet it. So it's a long strip there. So my northern guys hit 9 mile hold. But the reason it's hitting good right now, guys, is the wind's been going bad, as everybody knows. North wind, south wind, north wind, south wind. So it's protected there. You can get out of the element. And it's also pushing all that bait up in there. So the best bet to use live shrimp and popping cork along the edges of those drop-offs, grass beds. If you're throwing some soft plastic, try the saltwater cast them like sea shad, one of my favorite colors, with a 8-ounce jig head there. Work the drop-offs also on that in the grass. And work some of those guts that go in and out of that whole land cut there. And if you're using the live shrimp, of course, put a 25-pound fluorocarbon leader on about 2 to 3 foot and pop it, and it's been working really good there. We've got a photo here of a good solid trout. Captain Connor, buddy of mine, sent me that pic. He was coming out of Baffin Bay from the north head and the south, and I was coming from Mansfield. We met up in there, and good picture there. Lady had a good day. And moving on to the drum fishing's been plenty of action. Still the same area, North Land Cut. And the best bet on that deal, is free line some live shrimp off the drop-offs, or rig it with a Carolina rig, 25-pound leader, 3/4 ounce, lead, and then go ahead and work those drop-offs really good. And free line also works really good. All depends on the currents and stuff. When you're walking, if you're white fishing, that's different, but more than likely you're going to be on your boat. So move the boat down a little ways, power pull down, fish that drop-off, fish a gut. If you're on them, stay on it. Go ahead and power pull up and let it drift down a little bit ways, whether you're coming from north or south, depending on the wind blowing, and been producing really well. And if you're using frozen bait, best bet on that is use some live shrimp. And what I like doing is take the head off and then peel a couple of the peel it back a little bit to you and then hook it in the tail, and that'll get more scent in the water there and you'll end up catching more fish. And we got a picture of a black drum there with a good, happy little young guy that was on Captain Connor's boat there that same day. So the smile was all worth it right there. So,
yeah, man, that tells the story, doesn't it? Let's go offshore, bub.
Does. That makes it all worth going for everybody. But in the Wahoo bite, like I said, it's been on out of Port Aransas. There was a boat with double digits out there, up to 75 pounds, and we've been catching some down here also. And try a Rapala saltwater X-Rap, that Magnum dive that came out with one. It's a 40, so it comes out to 40 foot deep, and was my favorite go-to color when you're going for these toothy guys. So make sure to rig it with wire or cable, from getting broke off. And after you pull these baits, they pull great. So if you get a bite, pull that bait back up and check your leader, check your wire, check your cable, make sure it's not nicked or kinked or anything like that. You don't want to end up losing one of these fish. And I'd go ahead and look for that structure, weed lines or anything you got, or bottom structure or rigs out of Port A there, about 250 foot or deeper. It's been really good. And then for guys that have been going out farther out, there's some daytime dropping over there. Talked to a buddy of mine, Leslie Mayo, who runs 6 feet deep, and they've been doing some daytime dropping for some swordfish, but for about 1,200 feet or so. And of course, use some rig squid for best bites on that one. Get that larger squid. Boston mackerel will work too, but I like using a squid. You get about 10 foot of 300-pound mono, 12-aught J-hook, 70-pound rigging floss, and sew it up with a 5-pound window weight and drop it down on the bottom and bump it on the bottom if you want to, enjoy some time and have a shot of some good eating there. And they got a picture of a swordfish here with off to be deep with Dusty Mayo's boat there.
All right, Chad, I got a couple questions for you, man. You got another species?
Yep, you got snapper there if you want to hit on that one real quick. So we got the snapper fishing state water's been excellent, Mansfield, South Padre and stuff like that. The current's been going rougher because of the steam conditions, but use that 8-ounce, 16-ounce bank weights, until it starts calming down. Once it calms down, go to the flutter jigs and you'll be good from there. And got a picture there of a good snapper that Allison Ravitz caught.
All right, man. Good job. So I got a question for you. So tell me about the shrimp, and have you been doing well with your shrimp boats?
Yeah, I've been doing real good. We're catching plenty of shrimp. The shrimp are big Corpus area, and the shrimp are smaller in the Port Mansfield, South Padre area. So depending where you're coming from, we got boats in both places, and that's a bait system.
All right, man. We're going to get down there and get some more bait. All right, bud. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the lower coast region hotspots. Inshore, bait fishing has been good in the land cut north of Port Mansfield for trout and drum. Wahoo bite is good out of Port Aransas and red snapper and state waters out of Port Mansfield.
Well, there you have it. 6 regions, 6 guides, and captains giving you the best, most accurate, and up-to-date fishing reports from around this great state of Texas. And of course, just very fashionable hosts, obviously, with his coasters.
When you're wearing some coasters, you got to look good. You know, that's just the way it is.
Coaster with the most.
Well, I tell you what,
me look
you know,
good.
the one thing about Texas
Maybe not.
is when it blows, it blows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Gotta get
guys,
that wind out of there.
they really got some wind.
But they
going
still
on
go?
down there, right?
They
Oh
still
yeah,
go?
man, they know how to get out of that wind, make it
Heck
happen. That's why they all professionals.
All right, guys, we'll see you next
Thank you guys
week.
so much
Thanks
for
for
watching.
tuning in.
We'll see you later.
Have a good
Bye.
weekend.